preach all these things on discipline and like basically getting your life in order, all great things. But then it's like when it comes to women, you just
You're a
open,
crap show.
you
Yeah.
just like you can
Man
chase them
whore.
like you're a crack addict.
Yeah.
And you can, because you quote earned it because you had discipline in all these other areas, but it's like you can, it's such a weird hypocritical thing.
Dude,
It's like
100%.
I have these like inner urges and whatever to want a variety of women. So because I have discipline in these other areas, I can just throw that discipline to the side.
Yeah, it's like you have preference with what you think is instinctual or what you can make an excuse for. It's like men deserve this. But you don't understand. Like men are meant to bring themselves under submission. If you can't discipline yourself and like orient yourself with like what he does with business and everything else, I'm sure there's other stuff he probably wanted to do. But he said, I'm doing this because this is going to benefit me the most. The same way a man will commit himself to a monogamous relationship because he knows it's going to benefit him most. It's the same thing. So it is hypocritical because it's just preference. It's where he's getting his rocks off. He thinks
A lot
that
of guys think
his
that's just
excuse is a
being a man.
evolutionary biological response mechanism he can't overrun. How's everybody doing?
Great. Fantastic.
We actually just got done working on this studio. David and Mike have been hard at work, so we got new lights up and hopefully a new look for you guys. Trying
a little
to
bit of
come
a
out of the
different
bat
vibe.
cave a little bit.
Going chic.
Yeah, chic. Joe
Yeah,
came
and then
up.
we
I don't
just-
even know what chic means.
Black and white.
Oh, nice. Okay,
It's kind of our
fine.
brand anyway. So
Black and white, man.
If it's
Only
not
two
black
colors of
or
clothing
white,
I
cut it off.
we, but yeah, so we were after we were done, we were sitting here like talking about some red pill stuff. We're like, we should just record this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because you had showed us a video. So Rollo's tweet, first of all, about like what a high value male is. We're like, that's obviously, we know Rollo, so we knew it was kind of like a troll meant to go viral, which is exactly what it did.
I
And,
wished he would have said it was a troll because I honestly thought it was.
might not have been,
And he
I
didn't
don't know.
say that. You know, he tried and I
If
love Rollo
The way
to
he
death.
owned it afterwards might have been a little bit more. Like,
How did he own it afterwards?
well, he got like really kind of was just wanting people to know like it was like a question
But yeah,
as to what a high value male.
and
was.
in the
that this is
first-
the shortest A to B to becoming a high value male, which is kind of like inciting like, well, this is what a high value male is.
Exactly. So like in the first podcast for Fresh and Fit that you showed us, Mike, where Rollo was remote and he was in his own studio and Sneeko and Destiny were kind of, really
Clowning him.
giving him a hard time.
Yeah.
And
Dumbledore.
I think some of the third grader lunch table shit was not the hard time I'm actually talking about. I'm talking about him, like Joe said, when he's like the quickest way. If you could read the tweet directly, I can paraphrasing here, but the quickest way to become a high value male implies that this is a recipe to do that, which most people reading it without having known Rollo's, there's no prologue there to describe what he's actually, so it's at face value, it's easy to misunderstand,
For
and I
sure.
think that's where they were like, well, what the hell do you actually mean?
Yeah, what is a high value male?
Right. That's
And
where
then
it
we
all-
watched that first debate, which was not really a debate, and then the next one
right.
that was actually a good debate with Destiny, Sneeko, Fresh and Fit, and then what's his name, Sartain.
Yeah, and I got the tweet here too. He says the quickest path to becoming a high value male, and the big one was the vasectomy in the 20s thing.
For sure.
And I think
Cut your nuts
no one
off.
read that quickest path. Everyone read
balls.
read that word quickest path as like literally like best path.
True.
And it's like,
True.
no, the quickest path to get rich is robbing a bank. Like, doesn't mean it's the best way to do it.
It's true.
And
Which
I-
is kind of like, why even say it?
But
that's where I think the frustration
And
came.
now everyone's talking.
Right, and
Best way
and
to
so
die
like that's
happy
where
is to
that's
take
where
a bunch of heroin, boy.
for sure. Come on, guys, you could go down that road and have a lot of fun with that,
Yeah.
But I think that's like where the frustration is for me because I love Rollo and he's helped me grow a lot with all of his information. Like I wanted in my heart to see him say to those guys, "Yeah, it was a total troll, guys." Like obviously a high value
He
male.
did
is
say
different.
that in the second debate. He was
I
like,
know, but
he
like,
wanted a viral tweet. He wanted to get people talking
did
about
he
it.
say that in the second one?
Kind of, yeah, that's what he said, and I just feel like he kind of sort of came, yeah, that's what he wanted to do with it.
Well, like it would be, like Elon does that, right? Like he's sort of
It
in
sparked
that
a good
place.
discussion.
inciting,
Yeah.
it's
in the
inciting.
whole sphere, it sparked
Yeah.
a good discussion.
It did, and I think that's the point of it. And Rollo could have owned it better in the beginning when he was done that first debate. Like, he's like, I just wanted to have the conversation. Like that was the point, instead of kind of getting ethereal with like, what is a high value man? Like, you tell me, and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Being frustrated with them instead of being like, more grandpa.
That's
you know,
why they defined
the
it
Godfather
specifically in the
feel.
second one.
With Rollo, I feel like he could do better to like be the Godfather instead of like trying to contend with some of these youngsters the way that they do it. Remain the elder in the discussion.
Yeah, and for Rollo as our brother in Christ, that's where I always see, like, he has so much power. Like, it's almost like he has this incredible nuclear power plant that he just needs to plug into, where he could start to pivot from just saying, because that's what people want to know. I mean,
he gets
it's
caught
almost
up in,
like
the minutia. And
yeah, it's
caught up in
almost
sort of
like the
drama
the
and
red
the
pill
whole-
has this
Ugh.
red pill thing of like it's reality. So here's reality, and so everybody's like, okay, we know what the reality is. So they've read the book, they've listened to several of the podcasts, and they're like, so now what do we do from here, right? And then all these guys end up getting into these wrong domains like pickup artists and all this other crap. It's like, well, that's not what you should do.
Well,
That's not
I think
that's
that's the crux of the issues, because it's like he doesn't claim to prescribe. He's a praxeologist, and like at the end of the day, it always leads you to a certain conclusion, and then either you support that or you don't. And you can say like, yeah, the quickest way to become a high value
Like, what does
man
praxeologist mean
to
for
do
the audience?
A, B, and C. But
you guys-
doing A, B, and C might lead you to being like, a high value man, or a successful man. But is it really successful? Like, is it really this person that's going to bring you fulfillment? Are you going to do better for your world? Are you going to have a legacy? Are you going to actually benefit in a positive way? Your community and like all that other shit that matters besides having a giant bank account. For these guys, banging a bunch of hoes, which is like ultimately
think
unfulfilling. And
what
most
they
people will
defined
tell
it-
you that long
What they
term.
defined it as in that debate, I thought was reasonable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't think I think that's
what they end up defining, because I heard so much. Basically, what I got from hearing, and I didn't listen to the whole debate, was it's high value dependent on the guy. So like he's going to set his preference and the epitome of a man he wants to be, and he's going to strive towards that. And that's what a high value
They specifically
man
defined it in that 4-hour debate.
Okay.
What was it, Mike?
I hate to paraphrase in case I get it wrong. We should maybe
It's
pull up the
okay.
clip. But
What did you get from it, though?
was
I mean,
pretty
like
much
that's
like-
what matters most. Is like, what did you get after listening to it?
I'm trying to remember. It was like they had a dollar amount of the money. I think it was like over 100,000.
Yeah.
And then they has like people look to him as he has a sphere of influence. Men want to be him.
People respect
him. People respect him.
Yeah.
He's respected by his peers.
Yep.
He has a respectable skill set.
Mhm.
And he brings value essentially
To
to
the
world.
community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that
Um,
makes sense, right? And
And that's
like,
what it means. It's like what you were saying. It's like it depends on where you're at. Like
well,
your
to me,
circumstance
I think we can
defines what a
circumnavigate the
high-value male is.
minutia
Like
discussion.
Destiny brought it up a lot of times. He's like, I'm a nerd, but if you put me in like that fishing village or like a hunter situation, I'm gonna be of high value. I'm not gonna be present any
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
But if you take like a hunter from Africa, you put him in West Hollywood, and he's not going to be able to present much. You know,
and so
either.
there's
So it depends on where you're at. Depends on what kind of a high value male.
Well,
you are,
there's
'cause there's a lot of different.
what
types.
I think, what I saw happening.
It just seems obvious.
What I
You know
saw
what I mean?
happening with that is there's a breakdown in communication, right? So there's a breakdown with the short stories and vignettes that they use to describe the codifying terms that are associated with the Manosphere and Red Pill, right? Like alpha and beta. So they bring up the typical vignette of a rich dude with the hot wife, and the hot wife bangs the pool boy. And so according to Red Pill, the pool boy's the beta, or not the beta, he's the alpha, and the rich guy's the beta. But if you look deeper into the context of that situation, the rich guy could be just uninterested in his wife, could be banging a bunch of other side hoes, and the pool boy just has some good looks. He might be the beta. So like these terms as placeholders, this is where all the confusion begins to set in.
Or the guy
because
could
like
be
Joe was talking
could be an
about, like
ugly
you have
guy.
somebody who's a very good at a specific domain. He's a nuclear scientist, but if you put him in, the tundra in Alaska, he's not going to survive. So the point that people are supposed to try and understand is like, this is the point of a high value male should be, and this is what I'm starting to understand, because those are all so circumstantial. Like it could be different for everywhere in the world. You could have $1 million, and if you're in the Serengeti, no one's going to care about your money, dude. They're going to care about the antelope pelt you can bring back to the village. It has some use, right? So what is a high value male? After I listened to it, it was like a high value male has high values. And the work into defining what high values is the difficult work a man has to do. A man can't just sit there and open up the Bible and read that once and know what high value is, or know what the values that are in he has to study it. He has to work it out and put it and embed it into his life. That's why we have rituals of discipline and repetition in order to make ourselves high-value men. Because the only way somebody wants to emulate a high-value man is because he knows what to do in the cultural dynamic to make a right choice. And whatever, those choices are always hard ones. The president always has basically unsolvable problems. That's what he's faced with every single day.
So what you're saying
So
is
he
like
has a value system.
There's high value men of all shapes and sizes depending on their circumstance, and that. But what is the common ground are the tools that they use within their character, within the discipline, the willpower, the being able to take on unsolvable problems with a good attitude. To be able to take leadership and to take accountability and to make those changes, to learn, to become, to have something of service to the people around, to present some value. And those are those, I guess you could call them, those are the core values that make a high value man.
Yeah, because like the aesthetic, I think it's like we're the conversation was based around the aesthetic of high value. Like the aesthetic of high value is what you see. Right, like so. Usually, the guy with all that, because what I'm talking about the organs. I'm talking about the organs of high value, which develop the aesthetic. I think they were talking about the aesthetic too much, where it's like, here's what it looks like. They're trying to put a dollar amount or a profession or some of these things that kind of are on the surface, but the organs that get a person to that level, so that they're actually not just doing those. Because you can have all those high value aesthetics and not be a high value male, which is the same thing with the pool guy with that vignette. You could he's the alpha is actually the husband. He's not the beta. He doesn't care if his wife's fucking the pool boy. So I mean, like, these codifying terms, even though they're placeholders, they cause a lot of confusion. And that's why I think that the conversation was based around the aesthetic of a high value man when they really want to talk about the organs of a high value man, because you're not going to get. It's like the rich people that kill themselves all the time, right? You see like Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park. That there's tons of them. Chris Cornell. They kill themselves and they're super well received. They're worshipped. They have everything, but they didn't have the high value organs to understand how to actually use their resources. And you hear that all the time. Like, we're a man of resources. You heard Destiny say that all the time. We're guys. We have a lot of resources that we are able to control. What do you do with those things? So that's where I think the conversation was just circular, and I was just like, oh God, like they're just bringing up all these terms, and I'm not hearing anything, because our job as Iron Disciples is we're constantly trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the kids who are like 18, who don't understand any of the stuff that a lot of these old guys have already walked through. Like, they already have the patina of somebody who's experienced life. And they take for granted all those patina, those little deaths that they've experienced to get them the wisdom that they need to make the decision. But when you're 18, you don't know anything about that. You see a Bugatti.
Well, you're more concerned with the aesthetic, but a high value man has high values, and I think you'll know this.
Exactly.
I think you'll know.
Defined by who?
Defined by high value men. You know what I mean? And if you look at guys that are not just Tates with Bugattis and fucking, sex, whatever you call it, or what do they call it, video girls and all this stuff. Like, these are cheap dudes. I'm sorry, they are. They're not like, they're not like Gandhi. They're not like Martin Luther. They're not like our founding fathers, John Adams. They're not. I think
we
like,
could talk circles on this high value.
I just want to say one more thing. I'm not done yet, though.
Okay.
I'm not done yet.
Go ahead, sorry.
Like, to me, these are people that have like influenced the world in a positive way. And they have actually changed things and have a legacy. That's
I feel like
positive.
that's just not necessary to talk about.
Because these guys just want to have sex. Really, that's what these guys want.
That's the bottom line of an 18-year-old. That's what I was
the bottom
trying
line
to say.
of the 18-year-old. They just want to get their dicks wet, and that's all they're concerned with. And then they
may
kind of
say other things, but like at the end of the day, like
the reality is they're concerned with that because it's like that's the unreachable goal. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even concerned with like benefiting the world in a positive way.
They don't even know what that
means. There's no altruism. There's no sort of like, okay, what really is a high value man? How am I going to have a legacy? What do I do for the people like the Elon Musk? Like, guys are like concerned with like, how do we push forward? How do we pioneer? These guys are like, how do I get my dick wet? All right, that's what I want to do. Yeah. And that's the issue right there, is because they're conflating that with a high value male, and it's just not. It's like, you want to become a guy that gets laid. Let's be serious here. Let's be honest with what you want. Like, you want a guy that has a good lifestyle. That
ultimately,
lives a fun
that's what everything comes down
It just
to.
wants
though.
to get laid.
Well, for an 18-year-old man,
I wouldn't
for sure,
say I
or
wouldn't
like
say
around
that's
that
what
age.
everything comes
But-
down to, because once you reach a certain age, it's you're on a new thing.
But here's our
You've
message.
had your dick wet enough times.
That's right.
Like that was
That's
fun, but
great.
now
Kurt
at this
Cobain,
point in time,
look at Chester Bennington, rock stars.
I want to have a family. I want to leave a legacy. I want to be. I want my name remembered for good things. I want to inspire others to do greatness. I want to have an impact that is positive. And you're done with the pussy wedding because you realize that's an endless circle. It's a closed loop. Never stops. There's always a
Dopamine
better
just
one.
goes lower
There's always
and
a
lower.
different one. There's
Well, it
always a
just
better set of
it-
titties. There's always a better
it
different
just
set of
evolves
asses.
to like we're
Never
wired to
stops.
reproduce.
Yeah.
We have to do stuff to be impressive to women to reproduce.
Yeah.
And once you get one, now you're wired to provide for that family you created.
Hopefully.
And then build your legacy on that. Like it's just it all
Right.
comes
And-
down
and-
to
and
that.
I
how
say-
many
can I
how
say
many
something?
how
Hey,
many of
hang
these
on.
women that these guys are trying to get are quality women?
Not at
You know,
all.
They all want they
Yeah.
all want this lifestyle. They have nothing to give you. They literally all they are is hot, and they probably are not very good in bed. You know what I mean? Because I've seen this, the firsthand experience. Like,
But I want to back up before we go into that.
Do you actually
because,
want
like,
these
I
women?
think Mike asked a pretty good question, and that is like, how do you qualify quality, high value? How do you qualify it? And it's very simple, and that's why when the young guys come to group and stuff, and they're smart enough to be able to see the sad stories of people who've had the opulence of sex and money and everything, and it still doesn't get them to that high value point, they start to ask, where are the resources to define how high value? And that's in the Bible. And this is where I was talking about Rollo plugging into the superpower, like that giant freaking power vessel that he's not plugging into, and he's choosing to keep it very narrow and secular. And he's written his book on religion, and he's confessed Christ, which I love, and I know that is a lot to expect from anybody, especially in his place. But there's so much more that we can get from the Bible to define value that is going to it's noticeable. You see Jordan Peterson doing this with like taking the Bible and saying, why does this matter so much for Western culture? Well, we get it from British common law. That's how our law works out, right? So that's the value system that it works, innocent until proven guilty. We have all of the structures that are from the Old Testament present in nowadays law that came from the Bible. We have the idea of marriage, the way that it's conducted. We have all of these structures
and it's
that
not
are
just
there.
in the Bible. It's other
But-
Westernized.
No,
there's
well,
other,
it comes from God when it's good. and that's the
monogamy
point.
is generally like been from every religion. And
I'm not just taking monogamy. I'm taking
civilization.
the way that, and that's how you qualify it. So you can go the Oscar Wilde route, and Oscar Wilde went the hedonistic route to the umpteenth degree. And what he found was that you can have all of those things, and you're still going to be vacant. You're still going to be feeling that feeling of nothingness.
Yeah,
so
hedonism leads
so
to
you can
ultimately
qualify.
nihilism.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is you can find
Hedonism
resources
leads
to
to nihilism.
define high value, and you should start there. Because if you're a young man and you declare yourself a Christian, or you declare yourself somebody, how do you align yourself with God?
I was
He's the
talking to my
definer.
buddy Paul this morning, and it was interesting because he was like, I got into bodybuilding to try and get girls, and I thought like, I'm going to get ripped. I'm going to attract chicks.
Track dudes.
There's enough memes on that. You
There's
get a
enough
lot of
memes on that.
compliments from dudes. That's about it.
Well, because, we're open enough to be like, dude, you look awesome. But I was observing. I was like, dude, like, the first couple of years in the gym, I got zero results. It was just all about the grind and the mindset and like, getting real with challenge and failure every single day, being present throughout that failure, not escaping and valuing it highly because that's where your growth is occurring. And I was thinking about all these guys and what their motivation is. So they want to go to the gym. They want to, make a bunch of money. They want to get the girl. They want to get the house. What is their motivation for it? Long term, the girl is not going to, if you go into the gym to get chicks, you're not going to stay in the gym a long time. Once you get that chick, you're going to end up eating and doing whatever
Yeah.
and getting fat ass. Okay. And girls, they kind of inherently know this. You know what I mean? They kind of, and this is where I kind of want to just draw a line within, like, it's all about sex, or it is about that. That is the major dominance hierarchy within the
Absolutely.
world, not arguing that. But when women are attracted to a guy who's after what he loves because he loves it, and he doesn't give a fuck who's coming on for the ride or not because he knows it's valuable. He knows the gym's valuable. And if this girl or if his friends or if somebody, the world comes at him and is like, wow, now that's, try this instead, or, go with the latest trends, and is just, he is not stable as a man. He does not have deep roots. You can't you rely on him because he can't rely on himself to make judgment calls and to lead by his own example, to lead down his own direction, whether or not people are on it, whether or not he's getting chicks and he's scrawny and he's fat and he's going on a bulk. And for a year, he looks like crap. And the chicks are like, yo, smell, your farts are nasty. And then after that year or two, then he actually develops a body, right? And by that time, he knows why. It's insane with any kind of discipline. And I just want to draw that line.
I mean, like,
that's what makes a truly high-value man, is knowing those motivations and those core values and what's going to get you success in whatever domain you want to apply yourself into.
You can self-arrest yourself. You can express self-discipline by controlling your thoughts, controlling exactly what's going on in your head, heart, and mind. That's going to cause you to grow. By saying no to yourself until it feels good. Saying no to the stupid chicks, saying no to the drugs, saying no to all these things until you have a value set that's going to be good enough to inform you on those hard decisions. Because if you say yes to all these things because they're what you desire, what's going to happen is you're going to end up destroying your moral compass, your
dopaminergic system will be oriented.
What happens is, like, and I see this all the time. So like with a man, his conscience, and that's why Paul says to bring every thought in under submission.
Well, that's why guys talk about
so
being wired a certain way.
I mean, it's in many ways it's an excuse
for failure.
Because like when you have your conscience that's being informed by the Holy Spirit, it's not just you, right? And you're not just doing things for you. Because if you're doing things for you your whole life, you're going to feel like crap at the end. You're going to be vacant. That's just the problem with just doing it for you. There's ways to learn what the red pill is explaining. There's so much good stuff in the red pill.
They say this stuff correctly. They preach endlessly, like, if you are doing this stuff for the ends of women, you are going to end up depressed and have, like, it should be you're on your mission, and women are a byproduct of that mission, not the reason you're on the mission.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Well, that's a prescription.
Exactly
See, that's a prescription, and I do agree when I see those
saying.
things. Like, and that's where I say the red pill has a lot of good stuff to offer.
But a lot of guys get that flip. They're like, the mission is women. The mission is that, and it's like, dude, no, wait a second. Like, you're putting them in the control seat of your life at that point in time. Because what if they want to do this? What if they want to do that? You don't have a direction. You have no frame. You have no idea what you're doing. Because once you get the goal, you're sitting there like a kid in the freaking sandbox going goo goo gaga again because you don't know where you're going. You don't have any freaking goals, man. And you don't know what happens next. And that's what a woman wants. She wants a man that knows what happens next. Where is she going? She wants to be with him, going on a journey, a destination. Man needs to be always on a route to a destination. If
it just can't be at any destination, because that's the whole problem with this whole concept. It's like a destination. It's like
what is the ultimate destination?
You need to know
everybody deals with, John.
You need to know your anointing, and that begins with submitting and humbling yourself before God.
Death.
Anything
is
you
the
do,
ultimate destination.
anything you do outside of that is going to be selfish and will, in the end, yield bad fruit. This is the bottom line. So you can use, like, God's laws is used by everybody to get ahead. Discipline, doing stuff for others. There's plenty of atheists with a moral code that transcends the plenty of, Protestants and Catholics out there. Fine. The point is that if you connect yourself with Christ daily, that discipline is going to inform your conscience so that you can make the right choices. Because like you said, if it's all about what you want, having a destination, all these terms, this is where we stand us outside of red pill as iron disciples and believers. What our addition to the conversation is that I feel Rollo should try and usher in more if we're trying to transform people's lives is the most important part.
Because
on your
road to destination, you're going to encounter lots of failures. And if you're not deeply rooted in some type of higher belief and calling and understanding that there's more with your prayer life, your Bible reading.
It's not just some.
Well,
everybody's going to make up their own one.
Some people might be Muslim. Some people, I want to encourage them to stay within that route of like some belief. There's some belief in a higher power. That's where it starts. That's where it begins, and then you go further from there. But you're gonna reach failures in there. What do? You know what I mean?
Somebody who believes in another higher power is no better off than an atheist who's moral relative. They're not better off.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're closer than somebody that's not tapping
very
into
sometimes
very
so
marginal.
Easier to have a conversation with an atheist.
100%. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so
because
you guys
it's not just belief or faith. Because everybody's going to have belief and faith in something. So
if you don't have roots, you can't get past failure. Okay, and then if you don't, once you get to your destination, which ultimately is going to be death, what happens next, right? So even if you do get the prize, you know what I mean? You get the woman, you get the job, you get all the stuff, and then you meet death, then what happens next? Right? You have to be prepared for that. Like for my eyes, when I go and I see God, my Father, who knows me better than anybody else in the entire world, and He's able to understand me 100% understanding, absolute recognition of every emotion, feeling, every choice that I made, why I made it, why I didn't make it, and he's there, and is that love and that compassion, that just complete love and
It's gonna be an
understanding
awesome
for
moment,
everything that I
dude.
did in my life.
Can't wait.
And he's like, okay, I want to be able to look into his eyes, and that's what I want to look for. Is like that's the success of him going, oh, you did this instead of this.
Well, kids
Because
don't know that
your
because
eyes were on me. Your eyes were focused on me
That's
instead
right.
of on this world. And then you see things from that paradigm, and you're working for that. And it's like
it's called eyes for eternity.
Exactly.
You live for your home.
Exactly.
It's eyes for eternity. It's a perspective change that we get as believers, right? We get the Holy Spirit, so we get this added benefit of conscience. We're one with the Spirit. We're one with the Father. We have this. This is what informs your decisions, because they can, if it's just what you want, you're going to make all these decisions based on your pleasure, your desire, and the world will validate you. You're going to be validated, but are you going to be fulfilled? This is where we stand outside of red pill discussions, especially Rollo, who does not want to give prescriptions, because for me, I know what people need. They need the Holy Spirit. They need redemption. They need to be with their Father in redemptive life. That's what they need. They don't need to know past. I mean, every single human being is going to have to be responsive to the world he's around, the culture, understand the lay of the land. Lewis and Clark, you have to map out where you're going. This is all extremely important. Paul, when he was going through and doing his ministry work, he wrote letters, he checked in, he knew the cultures he was going into. When he went to talk to the Corinthians, he talked and quoted Greek literature. He spoke their language to them. We can't always be speaking Christianese, but the point is to the non-believers that in order for you to come into fulfillment, there is a prescription, right? And this is where Rollo, as a believer, and I love him so much, this is where I see the enemy attacking him. I see him getting attacked. I see him being humbled. I see him being sort of taken with this satanic, onslaught, because he's about to do something very good. He's a believer in Christ. He's the Son of God. He's our brother. And these things are very real. And when you engage in a discussion and you're at the terms of that's all secular, rules and things, and you do not bring your faith, the defining factor of your life, you are taking away your golden bullet. You're taking away those things, because that's where I want our listeners to understand. Like, I know Will, some of our other friends, he does the Renaissance of Men podcast channel. This is kind of where I want to steer the discussion to next, which is there are a lot of believers and non-believers now that are sort of indicating there's death pangs in the manosphere, and red pill is sort of floundering, and not even floundering, just going to go by the wayside. A lot of people are starting to say this, and there's reasons for that. Now, what I first saw was a lot of benefit, because I was very lucky to be introduced to the red pill by you, Mike, and reading the book, right? And talking to Rollo. Rollo was a very kind, generous man with his time. He gave us time. He responded to us. He slapped us on the ass and said, here's what you need to do. And I was educated through that means, which is the ideal way, right? You go straight to the source. Fine. A lot of people get sound bitten and they get a completely different idea of what it is. Now, the problem with red pill that I see happening now in the manosphere is very similar to like big pharma, okay? Once there's an issue that's been presented, these people are all dependent upon the perpetuation of issues. So they wax long, talk long about all these minutiae details, and it's like, are we really solving problems? Are we giving prescriptions? The medicine being handed out to the people. Is the medicine being handed out to the people? That's not happening. And people are starting to sense the toxicity of the environment. And everybody does. When there's not enough water inside of the
comments
lakes.
About guys, like, they were like, well, this is just going to end up where, women and men don't get along. Like, we already have like these issues to begin with, and it's just not like actually, in some ways, like it's just making a greater divide. I've seen that in the comments, like where you can see guys are like actually want to start the families. Like, you can see like this sort of shift going to where like they want to value morality and virtue within a relationship versus just like, being the shit.
Well, I mean,
that's my opinion of the majority, I think, of people that find the red pill, is they just want to do the simple. They're not trying to be Myron and have 4 wives and stuff like that. They just want some quality woman to settle down with, and they get burned a bunch by the modern dating culture, and they end up in the red pill.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is there's not many other answers out there. Like I think a lot of the guys that we've come across on our channel, it's kind of think they're in that same boat, and it's like what is the alternative? Well, right now there is none. So you end up in the red pill down these rabbit holes. And then a lot of this data, which you don't know what to do with, it definitely looks bleak. And I think we got to like, there's
because the Christians
there's a
aren't
bunch of
giving you
different-
any good
No,
advice.
yeah, and
Well,
that's
and I
the-
they're
think
not telling you
the
anything
problem
to
is-
help
This is
you
why
out with
you
it.
need to talk about that, Mike, because there's so many good parts about red pill that open your eyes.
Fuck, yeah,
you
dude,
need
like,
this
it's
information, and it's bleak,
huge.
right?
yeah.
And why is it bleak? Because we're
Well, you're
living in the
also
world of the devil, so
You're
it's going
dealing with average people.
be
It's
that
like
way.
we're
Can't
not
get away from it.
Average people.
Yeah, number one, you're looking at a data set of like the majority of humanity, or like just say America,
Proletarians.
and it's like you already like number one,
Sheeple.
if you're like if
true.
you're quote this high value man, which in my opinion, it's like to sum up that conversation, I just view it as what they described as a high value man. Add on Christian integrity values, boom, high value
Values
man.
and morality.
Yeah.
Just
Simple.
shove 'em
Pretty
in.
close.
Yep.
And then
Besides, like, you got.
it's like,
for us, our high value men are like Paul's, right? They're shoestringing it
Bro,
from
it's
city to
like Iron Man.
That's what I'm trying
you
to
can
say.
Put a piece of shit in Iron Man, you're gonna get shit man. But if you put Iron Man in Iron Man, and then it's got you something good.
Well, I mean,
But-
like you gotta take.
Wait,
we
let him
gotta.
finish.
Let
Let
I
him
just
finish.
want to let me just make a caveat there, so that we're not misunderstood. That every high value Christian man has to have money, game, and all this other stuff, right? Or whatever.
well,
it is.
they
Like,
didn't
he
even
can-
say that. I think they said a man of influence that is respected by his peers.
The money thing's not essential.
The money thing is not essential.
Yeah.
I think it's if you're going to be the provider of your family, though, you need to make money today.
100% agree,
You
but
can't
like,
maybe the value, the 100K or whatever they say.
It's
That's
pretty
okay, I'll just
arbitrary.
say this: as a high value man, is being paying attention to his anointing and doing whatever God called him to do. He's being obedient,
Yeah.
Even if that means not getting the Ferrari and he wants one really bad.
Yeah.
right. Okay, I'll just say that. Go on.
But so I'm trying to think where was I at? So if you're looking at this data and you're looking at the population, number one, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
why are these top 1% men caring? Like, you're not going to marry an average woman. Number one, like everyone is dealing. We're trying to be outliers here, so I don't think the data even really matters that much to view. Like, if you viewed that data, well, number one, as Christian men, I feel like if you're a high quality Christian man today, you are like a rare person. So you're not going to go marry one of these statistics in the bell curve of
Yes.
women anyway. Like, so
No,
you're
you
not
want a
dealing
unicorn.
with, you're not dealing with the risks.
Right.
Like, it's good to know the data so you know to avoid those risks, but you're not going to marry into that risk. Number
Right.
one.
Right.
Number two, if you're going to spend all this time, like, to take it out of relationship world,
Mhm.
like if you were to view the data on like starting a business,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, yeah.
pretty grim after
Yeah.
like how many survive for the first 5 years,
right.
and you're going to spend all this time and money, dump into it, and you got like a 10% success rate.
Definitely a leap of faith.
Yeah. Are you
Right.
gonna? Why would like the logic the red pill takes on marriage? A lot of the creators, I'm not. It's kind. I want to use the term manosphere. I think I view the red pill as
Heck yeah.
is a just seeing reality.
It's like
Yeah,
content.
it's a synonym for seeing reality because
Totally.
it can be
Exactly.
applied to so many things. So
Yeah.
like the manosphere creators, I would say they say they look at this data on marriage
That's a good distinction. Thanks for doing
and
that.
they take it like I'm just thinking if you'd had that same perception, no one would ever start a business.
No.
It's like, is the risk? Yeah, you got a 50% divorce rate, but that's on the bell curve, like of averages. Like, if you marry probably not an average woman, your divorce rate's a lot less.
Right.
And so, like I feel like these risks they're trying to avoid are just like, man, if you're that risk adverse, like
You're not going to do anything.
You're not gonna do
We just
anything.
watched
In
Joe.
your
Joe
mom's
just watched a
basement.
movie.
You know.
Suggested. It's called Air. It's about how Jordan signed to
Michael
Nike.
Jordan, yeah. It's a
Dude,
great
and those
movie.
guys, and it's like, Seabiscuit. It's like all these stories where
Mhm.
these people, in the face of like complete and utter horrible odds, they succeed. And it's always based on belief, having vision, and those things are informed by, expertise. Hopefully your
They
walk
are.
with
It's
God.
not like you're going to the
Okay.
gamble and sit
No.
to the casino
No.
and be like, I feel great today.
No,
It's like,
but
I've
look,
been doing this my
but
whole
the
life.
point that I
have
wanna
an
make- I
expertise.
wanna- I
feel
kinda
great
wanna
about
keep
this.
the-
I'm going to
the
trust in this
convers-
instinct right now.
Right. I want to keep the conversation centered on why the useful elements that aren't being paid attention to in the manosphere or red pill, and I'm really glad you defined terms on that, and why do we think, why are we hearing from these people that red pill is entering into a new stage, a decline stage, with the representation we're seeing, and I guess the three of us could even talk about like what we could be so bold as to say what needs to happen, because our idea of red pill obviously is different. I mean, it's not to say that
bringing up a couple great things, because he's obviously pointing to the fly in the ointment. It's like, and you had also some other like, you know, ideas like for a lot of you're dealing with these you know, what do you call them, demographics that are giant, that are skewing the whole data for people that are of value. You know, like if you're going to find a good chick, everyone knows it's going to be risky business. It's going to take you a long time. Finding a great girl is not common.
Well, and
it's not easy. You know, having success is not common. None of this stuff's common, dude. Business, guitar.
It's like you want to have a 400 body count of a lot of gross ass hoes, dude.
Yeah,
like, nobody cares about
like,
that.
You know
nobody cares.
I think a lot of guys are starting to notice, like, you know, you want to bang a bunch of chicks, and then after a while, it just becomes banging a bunch of chicks, and then you're like, this is kind of boring. You know, like they're not all super hot. You know what I mean? They're all not good. And then
the point is, most of these guys want a unicorn, a really hot babe who's smart. Hopefully, they like. If we're talking about the guys who are oriented more on the sort of lucid side of things, not just like I want to date a porn star because they want sex. Like they want a high value female, for lack of a better term.
Up in the debate, they were like, you know, eliminate all sedations. You know what I mean? And I think it was Destiny.
That's more the conversation.
Nico was like, isn't women a sedation? And I was like, absolutely, dude. You get these guys who are texting 24/7. They're spinning all these plates, and guess what? That's what they do on their downtime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is exactly
like,
one of my other issues with, because I heard like on the whatever podcast, Justin Waller was on there, and he had. The lady that runs Live Action was challenging him on his views.
Who's that?
I can't remember her name.
Oh.
Yeah, I think so. Lila Rose.
She's smart.
So she was challenging him on his like relationship views, and she's like, you have like, you preach all these things on discipline and like basically getting your life in order, all great things, but then it's like when it comes to women. You're
a crap show.
You just like you can chase them like you're a crack addict.
Yeah,
and you can because you quote earned it because you had discipline all these other areas. But it's like you can. It's such a weird hypocritical thing. It's 100%. Like I have these like inner urges and whatever to want a variety of women. So because I have discipline in these other areas, I can just throw that discipline to the side.
Yeah.
And it's just like the most hypocritical BS thing.
Yeah, it's like you have preference with what you think is instinctual or what you can make an excuse for. It's like men deserve this. It's the same Andrew Tate thing, same thing of like, you know, this is how we're wired, blah, blah, blah. But you don't understand, like, men are meant to bring themselves under submission. If you can't discipline yourself and, like, orient yourself with, like, what he does with business and everything else, I'm sure there's other stuff he probably wanted to do, but he said, I'm doing this because this is going to benefit me the most. The same way a man will commit himself to a monogamous relationship because he knows it's going to benefit him most. It's the same thing. So it is hypocritical because it's just preference. It's where he's getting his rocks off. He thinks that his excuse is a evolutionary biological response mechanism he can't overrun. We're entitled to this, you know, and I've heard that so many times, and that is another factor that's corrupting the red pill. When people walk into it from a soundbite perspective and they see like little snippets of Fresh and Fit or the whatever podcast, you know what their first impression is? Oh, these guys get a bunch of dumb idiot women that they can outsmart. This is
exactly what people are saying in the comments. They're saying that like
they can make themselves look superior to these, you know, all these, what are the women that do the pornography website? OnlyFans. So they do all the OnlyFans stuff, and then they just make them look like idiots. It's like, well, yeah, if they got the smart women, the high-value women, that would be like Lila Rose. She was a high-value woman. She was talking. She was treated kind of like crap. I watched snippets of that, the way she went to Justin and talked about her, potentially him having kids. He's like, so what would you do if you had a daughter, and you told your daughter exactly the way you run around on your wife, her mother? And would you want your daughter to date a guy like you? And he became super defensive and basically shut her down. He was so
flustered.
Yeah, he did not like that question. And it's like, of course, because they're a human being. And if that was your daughter, do you really think that you would like her to be with a guy like you?
Yeah.
And then you're basically saying at that point in time, just with his reaction, that the answer is no. The answer is no, and you're a selfish prick when it comes to that.
It's a yes or no question.
Because it's a yes or no question, dude.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, but he shut her down because she is one of the smart women that's willing to ask questions and encounter them at their level.
And, you know, like,
but that's where the manosphere is dying, and that's where the red pill is dying, because they need to be having more of those conversations.
Like, if you think about it,
proving to men, because what the men want to see, if I was in the position of an 18-year-old, I want to see what high-value women look like.
Mm-hmm.
I'd want to have more information coming from high-value women talking to men. I'd want want to internalize what that kind of a relationship looks
Well,
like.
let me try
not
something
not
real quick.
alleged
Let me try
high,
something
no,
real
not
quick.
alleged high
So you
value
got a
males.
high value. So you got
Let me finish.
No, wait.
Not
this is
alleged.
great,
Joe
dude.
talking
Hang
over
on,
each
Joe.
other.
Come on.
Yeah. What I see
so
constantly
good.
happening is the high value males allegedly talking to the lowest value females. And so what we need to see to balance it is to see high value males talking to high value females without the high value males getting cut up and act like children when the high value females act like a high value female.
So you got a high value quote. This is just like from the red pill, and this is because what you're saying almost makes sense, but not really, because like a high value male wouldn't really want the low value women. It wouldn't make sense, and neither would the high value woman want the low value. That's just like this weird thing. I want to bang women, but like if you actually looked at like a high value male, you know, and or like let's just take their high value man. This guy runs around with women. He makes a bunch of money, does whatever he wants to do. And then you got this high value, I guess, woman from what the Manosphere would look at, which is like a hot chick, pretty much. I can't think of much else going on.
That's the problem with the Manosphere,
And
bro.
then-
That's the toxic element
Then you
within
get
it.
all
True.
these. Then, well, what do you mean?
They very clearly state what they think a high value woman is.
Right, someone that's married up, but then none of them are getting married.
No, they would say like
want,
a
like, 2 or 3
feminine,
wives.
traditional woman who
How many women are going to go
brings
along with
peace
that?
to their life,
Right.
etc. Like
But
that's
they
what
also
they
want,
label
like,
that as.
2 or 3 wives. How many of these women are going to do
This
that?
is the
unless they're
toxicity
Muslim?
part,
This
bro.
is-
This is what I'm trying
you're
to
talking-
say.
I don't think
like,
so.
There's 2 parts of this, dude. They
You're-
say that, and then
Well,
Myron has 400
to
body
defend
count.
to
you know?
play devil's advocate and defend you're talking
Yeah.
about like you're talking about like Myron, Justin Waller, and like
There aren't these high value.
there's
compared-
like
this
2 or
is-
3. Those are
and
like
I'm
2 or
saying-
3
I'm
creators
saying
that talk that
red
way.
pill Manosphere.
Like
I guess.
like Rollo
These
isn't
guys.
They're
talking.
the most famous red pill guys.
Yeah, I'm saying them. I'm not saying like, what actually I believe a high value male is.
Well,
Obviously, I,
but
believe something
you're
very
saying-
different.
You're saying like all Manosphere guys want like 4 wives, and
No.
like we're talking like
I'm saying,
Myron.
I'm saying like if they could, I believe they would, and they would. They have this like they have like this, I guess, fantasy of it being like a reality. Be like, I think this is what's really going on, and that's why there's this schism, which I see like in the comment section of guys going like, this is actually pushing the high value quote and the high value females farther apart. Because there's no actual high value man that's going to be or high value woman that's going to want to be with one of those guys.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
The
I
reality
know.
is she's,
Well,
she's
they
not.
don't- they-
she'd rather go with someone who's passionate about his desires, you know, who's like straight up guy that has
Why do you
good
think
values.
they're not on their podcast, dude? That's what I'm
They're
trying
not.
to say is a part of the toxic element within why the death pangs are the red pills, because the guys are saying that in the comment sections. They want to see image to them high value females talking to high value males, right? And having that communication transpire so that
Well-
they can image that back and hopefully
and
find one.
This is
you
kind
know?
of like
that's
part,
what they
I think,
should do.
I think the whatever podcast is like this is part of the solution, and like this is where I disagree with some of like the Ruslans and Will and whatnot. They kind of I want to say like just want to burn it down. Like,
I don't want
this-
to burn it down.
I think
Will
that
wants
is
to
not.
burn it down.
I think that's not the answer. I think the answer is like what's going on with some of like what's going or on the whatever podcast, because he's bringing on a lot of Christian people and both men and women to
Is
kind
he?
of like I've
I
watched
see the
a lot of
sound
that
bites, and
lately.
it's all
And he's had on this Chase guy like a half dozen, maybe a dozen times now, who's just like preaching Jesus from that.
But how
all the time.
ladies, dog?
And like last time he had on Leela Rose, another
First time,
another
Saw a good
woman.
one on there.
He has usually 2. I'd say probably 2 girls that are of the conservative mindset every time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? She said something really on the Pints of Aquinas. I love him. He's a Catholic badass dude. You should check out his channel. He got Leela Rose on there, and they were talking. And she's like, I kind of felt like it was a waste of time after I did the podcast, and then I saw in the comment sections what she
Not a waste of time.
Yeah, and what dawned on her exactly, it's not a waste of time, because what she didn't anticipate was that the girls sitting around the table, the OnlyFans, these girls, they are not educated at all. Okay, and you can blame them for a lot of it, but you can also understand they're so ignorant that they were actually listening. And some of the stuff she was saying was brand new information to them. And instead of just holding them over the fire and being like, look, you're dumb broads and you're making use of your body and it's horrible, it's evil what you're doing, you can say there's a better way and educate them. And she actually was able to do that, had some responses back from these girls to say like, thanks for explaining some of this stuff from a womanly point of view. And because like, here's what the Manosphere or the red pill should do, ideally, right? Like if we're little fish, right? And the woman is the sort of bait fish, right? Like predator, we're just going to drop like a little thing like that, even though it's not exactly what it is, it's close to that. The fishing lure is what you want to stay away from, right? That's like the OnlyFans girl, the porn star girl. It's like it's got hooks in it. You're gonna be on the pier getting flayed, bro. That's what your next step is. But you want to be able to recognize a good fish. It's gonna be of benefit to you, and you can actually grow. That's where you need balance, right? So like the Manosphere has been focusing, and that's where Rollo's book is focusing on saying, hey, you need to wake up to what's going on. This is the reality of it. These are what these girls actually have to offer you. Here's the fishing lure. Here's the thing that can destroy your life that looks like it's a real fish, but it's not. And then here's what the real fish looks like. But then what's incumbent upon us as Christian men is to educate the fishing lure women, which are just, they don't really know, some of them, man. Some of them.
Women
and that's
got to
what,
do that.
Well, we do too, as men, because we're the leaders, and I do agree they have to do that. I mean, I think about that one comedian. He's the bald dude. He's always making up the most brutal stuff.
Bill
Burr. He talks about women saying, "Why are you more?" He's like, "You're just not funny. You need to be funny. Go be funny, and then you'll be on the stage." I do agree women have to take on that attitude, but we also have to, as controllers of the podcast and stuff like that, Leela Rose, people like that are smarter to interface on what that is, because like that is where the red pill is. Like we have too much of a preference towards, like Joe said, the entertainment side.
Yeah,
but
you can even improve the entertainment.
Pushed up tits and massive this and massive that, and they're just like sitting there at the table like this, and guys are just getting low key hard-ons, watching a discussion, hearing information they've heard 600 times.
Well,
it's like they've already heard.
I think
all
the
of that stuff.
opportunity there is. This is what I would like to promote is like go like with the whatever podcast, go on those podcasts. And that's why I appreciate what Brian does with that one, because he has completely different views like on that are Christian all the time now. And it's just awesome to see these conversations happen.
Brian the host of that?
Yeah, Brian Atlas. And so like I view it as our response, like our future opportunity is to engage with these podcasts like that. Like even though they're kind of entertainment in the end, it's like if we can get our message. If you read the comments, there's plenty of people in the comments that are like enjoying what or agreeing with stuff that like Chase is saying. And Chase is one of the big Christian guys that's been on there a lot lately. Like Brian almost has him on every night now, I feel like. And
well,
I think like
there's a
can I
schism
ask
occurring. I see this in the comments, and there's a schism.
100%.
There's a defunct within like what a high, because that's what they're doing. They're saying this is a high value male. This is what he gets. And the high value female is they don't really know what that is truly. It's like they have an idea of what it is more realistically, but it's like more of a fantasy.
Totally,
it's not like a realistic. Yeah, it's not realistic at all. They don't understand like what else comes along with that territory, like finding a high value female. They're totally all about with the dudes, but they don't get it.
Yep, you're right. And then they show the fishing lure constantly, so the guys are getting hard-ons for
the other thing with Brian,
the hose.
And I'm like, that sucks. Because like, and I'm curious, this guy that they're having on,
Chase,
he's a Christian. Yeah. What's his offering? What's his perspective? How's it different?
He's just a full-on, like, no holding back Christian. Like he became a believer like 3 years ago. He's adamant like on how like what he's looking for in a wife, that he wants abstinence. He's got like he says his stuff out loud to these OnlyFans girls and argues with them on it, and it's great. Like it's good discussion.
Right,
and Brian has on more. Like he had on this Christian girl. They call her the Virgin Mary because I think her name's Mary. And man, she just throws down with these girls. Like she's, I don't know, mid-20s.
Well, see, now that part of it is the education of like some of these women that are young women, they're kids. And the same shit is if you were to get like a bunch of these fat, flabby, God forbid, these guys, they don't even barely dignified enough to call themselves men on there, and you're to question them, they would look like fools.
Yeah,
fools. But you get these girls on, they have huge bankroll because they've been doing OnlyFans for a couple years, and they look like fools too. And it's like, well, we gotta educate. They're fallen creatures that if you treat them as entertainment, as Christian men, that's a sin. We shouldn't be doing that. That's not something. And that's where, I mean, we obviously don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But are you talking about like this guy, whatever his name is? What's his name? The host again?
Well, Brian Atlas hosts the show.
Yeah, and
it's a similar format.
He's kind of on that. Yeah, that format.
He's on that.
Very
but
present.
The other thing is, like, Brian is not there telling them that he wants 4 wives like Myron is. Like, he just wants, like, I think one woman. That's quality. Like he's not of this,
but still
same
the entertainment
realm.
factor, like Joe was saying, is present.
But there's also this other point that I want to bring up, dude. Like even look at like Grey's Anatomy or half of the freaking romance novels that these women are reading. A lot of these women, like Colleen, what's her name? Hoover, I believe.
Is she the writer of
I
that
got
book
wrong.
or something?
She's written a
Female
bunch
porn?
of romance.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it's like crazy. She's really
It's so
good.
weird. It's a woman who writes it. Actually makes sense. Never mind. Yeah, duh.
Yeah, dude would
Um,
You'd
So-
be like, and then they made love.
The idea, and Jordan Peterson puts this up. It's either it's a pirate, a surgeon, Dracula, what a vampire,
billionaire
Vampire,
bad
yeah.
guy.
right?
Yeah.
So he is this what the red pill community would consider, as a high value male.
For
He's
sure.
promiscuous. He doesn't do whatever, and then all of a sudden there's this little angel comes by and like
Wants to change him.
she freaking hypnotizes him and like brings him to his
Beauty
true
and the
self.
Beast.
And like makes him see like the woe of his ways, and he's like, "I'm gonna love you forever. You've changed my life. You're
Yeah.
the one." So she's able to penetrate his shell, his
Dominate
facade,
him.
because
Yeah.
the only reason why he does all that stuff is because he's unfulfilled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just does it because he's a sorry, sad, poor little thing.
And that's what gets women off.
And women are like, I'm just
Love
gonna,
that
I'm just
stuff.
gonna get to that man and reach his heart
Yeah.
and make it tender.
Yeah, it's another
because he's
deception.
made us known, and like that is a deception that the women have to
100%.
confront. It's like,
100%.
woman, this is not going to happen. Like, that's the guy that's going to take you and tear you to shreds.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you think you're going to contend with this dude? You're wrong. He's going to shred you, and then he's going to shred your friends.
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean,
he's
look
gonna
at
shred
Beauty
your
and the
I think-
Beast. She
I
had
think
the
it's-
help of all the furniture
Well,
in the
I
house.
just wanna
Do you
put-
have the help of the kettle? No.
No, the
Belle
candlestick
had-
is
no.
burning your
You don't
ass,
have
dude.
any of
Well,
that.
it's to me, I just view it. I view it the same as the dudes that think they're gonna go date some OnlyFans girl or a girl like that. It's the same thing as
You're
the
not gonna take her
girl
and make her a
as
good
the
girl,
girl
dude.
trying to date like the Andrew Tate type character. Like you're not going to win that.
It's that change of character. It's
Yeah.
just like this flip of the coin. It's like I was a piece of
I was-
shit, and now I'm great because you made me great. You
Yeah.
showed
Or
me.
like,
you know what I mean?
dude,
And it's like
I'm
people
so
need to get
amazing.
real with that.
He
Well,
changed his whole
no
life
you
for
want,
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like, I mean, that's why,
it's
like-
really what it is. It's,
Yeah.
I'm so amazing.
Yeah.
He changed his
Yeah,
whole life. for me.
it's worship.
But the reality
Yeah.
is it's a fantasy.
It's
Yeah.
Because
worship.
like you need to
It's a
be
worship
looking for the
fantasy.
person that has lived a life that is. I mean, do you go after those super crazy risky bank, like stocks that just ride? No, you don't.
No,
You go after
stay away.
this legit company that's been around for blue chip stocks. Like that's what you go for. And you get that 11% every year. That's the reality of a relationship. You know what I mean?
It's psychology, dude. Like I was actually hearing some guy. It's funny you bring up investment because a lot of people need to understand that the psychology of progress is important to you. If you think you're going to get ahead fast and develop a high value male, like overnight in a year, if you read the Bibles 20 times, you're going to, know what you're talking about. That's not the way it works. It's an iterative process that happens over time.
Yeah.
You can't fast track it just like you can't go put your money on a volatile thing. It might work for a day. It's not going to work long term.
No.
So you have to have those things and you have to have that mindset. So like that's where I see the red pill. Like we covered some good topics on the red pill, like sort of the imbalance, what it's causing it to die and lose touch, like the schism, right? Like paying attention to, there's a bunch of 18-year-olds that want to see pushed up tits around the table and make fun of how dumb the hoes are. That's entertainment. That's a lot of your clicks, bro. I get it. There's probably a lot of those guys that are just sitting there watching for that reason. Then there's other guys who are like, okay, I've heard this 600 times. Give me something new that I can actually do something with to get the unicorn. Let's start educating the dumb hoes so that they can be unicorns too, or maybe raise some unicorns. Because the
going
whole issue
that
is the
direction.
families. There's no head of the household. There's no husbands making good families that are cranking out unicorn on both sides. High value males, high value females. There's just none. That's why there's a scarcity of them. So that is the issue. And if you can get these women, even if they're down the
Well, I
road and they've
think-
done OnlyFans to change their mindset, maybe they'll crank out some daughters down the road. We won't have this issue in a couple generations. That's the issue.
Well, they're being real about
But-
how good people get created. They don't just pop
Well, I mean,
out of nowhere.
these guys have an issue. Like the Whatever podcast, Fresh and Fit, even the Access Vegas, right? They have the issue. They have the schism, like you described, and this is what's causing some of the death in the red pill is the focus on their content being what it is, what we just described, and what it needs to be to balance out the equation to give people they need medicine. They need to have prescriptions of medicine that work. And this is where I like that guy who's on the Whatever podcast. You need to be brazen and bold about what we know is the medicine that will fix everybody. It's Christ in your life. Period. Pursue Christ. Then your life will be fulfilled. I mean, how many stories? Just type in icons and celebrities that have committed suicide and read about their stories. And ask yourself how you're different. Do you think you can smoke crack and not get addicted? Are you that arrogant? You think you're that arrogant where you can go and do all these things and then have a different outcome? Like, come on.
Give me
Wake
$1 million, I'm going to be amazing.
Yeah.
People are arrogant, dude.
Dude, half the people, I think it's even more than half.
Like,
win
I'm
the
gonna-
lottery, their lives go worse.
The reality
Just
is
horrible.
like you set somebody with even any kind of guy. Like I remember getting in Jordan Peterson's presence. I was kind of like, damn, I feel like a little bitch right now.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, like a lot of people don't put themselves in those risky situations. They don't talk to girls. You know, they'll sit there and comment on the big titties and sit there and like, oh my God, you should just watch porn, bro, and shut the hell up. You know, like, or go out and like talk to a girl. But that's the point. It's like people that live in a fantasy world, bro, and they don't care about the way things actually work. Because
Well,
when
I
they
was going to
do,
say,
and that's why Rollo and the Red Pill is so important. Is because he is trying
That's
to.
why I
shine
go
a
back
light
to the big
on
pharma
that,
thing where
you
Red
know?
Pill and all the
well, I think part of this is a symptom of
they wanted
stuff.
to perpetuate the hurt.
I would say stuff has definitely escalated in the decline since COVID. Like if you ask most, I think men now, like when did the dating get really bad? And they're like 3 years or 3 or 4 years ago, because stuff has significantly, I think, changed on that front.
Yeah.
So it's pushed more and more men for answers.
And what's the point is the insulation, right?
Yeah.
People being insulated, being more alone. Like there's less of
well,
what
I think
Joe
it pushed.
said.
I think it
people
pushed
masked.
more people
Yeah.
online,
Yeah.
and it pushed especially more girls online,
Yeah.
and it changed their
just made the
perception of
excuse,
themselves
too.
because online just inflates
Mhm.
the top people's
Yeah.
egos.
You know what church
and
does?
People don't. People don't
did
want
a
to go out
podcast.
anyways and do it. They don't want to do it. So now you just have this excuse lying there. You know, like, oh, you know, COVID, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I don't
Easy out.
Now it's an easy out. you
Yeah.
know, it's-
Well, you know what? I think it's just like we talk about in Bible study all the time for men in the church, because at the core issue for us, our red pill that we need to really work on in the church is understanding the servant leader model properly. And it's the same thing when you read Rollo Tomassi's book and you understand you've been blue pilled out the wazoo because you have an idea of what a leader is, but it's actually being a servant. And you have this, complete switch of definitions. And you're like, whoa, I got to straighten all this out. The same thing has to happen in the church for the husband, because Joe described it perfectly. What you have is a lack of leadership in the family for the church, which equates to the women not doing their job. It just follows down. It's like
what I
it's
said
like
is this: there's a
domino
whole,
effect.
there's a low. Since we said this in the beginning, there is a very low quantity of high value people out there. So why are there low value? Why is there a low quantity of these people?
Because the families
It's
aren't
because
cranking
there's
them out.
not enough families that are doing it. How does a family work, right? And then you get into the minutia of it, and then
It's
you
having
think,
Think
God,
we
it's
need to be
only
concerned
going to
with
go
that, right?
down because birth rates keep dropping. So
Yeah.
just think
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
You're not only do you have less people being born every year,
Doom pill,
you have
baby.
less
true.
people being born in quality families,
Right.
Mhm.
and then that just perpetuates the cycle.
yeah.
But I see this.
Well,
in
that's
the,
why
in the
we
comments,
as
is
men-
where people are actually like saying I think like the Manosphere Red Pill community, they're waking up to that because they're becoming aware of that idea of like, okay, there's not enough of these people. How are they made? Oh, there's going to be even less of them in the future.
Okay,
And it's a
first of all,
decline.
and this is where I think Rollo Tomassi and all these guys, Fresh and Fit, and all these guys who represent Red Pill, they need to get back to their roots, which is the Red Pill is meant to describe the reality of what happens next, where we're at now, be able to turn this away from this just being entertainment and the schism in between the men who just want entertainment, who they can see the chicks, and the men who actually want prescriptions and be able to tune up their life. And being honest with the fact that the superpower we have here is turning ourselves over to Christ. When you have a relationship, you have Christ in the room with you. It's not just two people interfacing. It's Christ who's brought these two flesh together. That's proper representation of marriage. That's the way it works out. So in the church, we have our red pill that needs to be our waking up. We need to take the red pill and say, okay, the men have sucked. We're not having enough kids in the right way. Families this is the reason why. Okay. The women, I'm going to blame men because we're the leaders. That's only where it can go. It's only where it can go for us. And so that's where it is for us. And I don't think that the red pill or the manosphere or anything is going to die anytime soon. But what it could do is just become more and more toxic. And we don't want to see that happen.
Right.
More and more
You know?
entertainment.
Well, and I think the one thing I was thinking about too with some of these guys that we were talking about, like kind of want to see it burn or watch the red or the manosphere kind of burn down.
Why?
Part of it I was also thinking is like you're kind of doing the cast your pearls before swine thing, I think, because ultimately it's like you want to make hit pieces and argue against these guys' ideas, but it's like if they don't have the foundation of Jesus to begin with, what do you do? Like, you're kind of arguing against
I
nothing.
completely agree. You said it perfectly. You said it perfectly.
This is where it comes to where there's a common ground. Is that there's a certain high value people come from families that work well, and there's a certain structure to the way the families that work well operate, and then so that leads us back to a certain place.
But what he's saying is like you can't take, like, we know that as believers, the Wills, the Ruslan's, these guys, we've been redeemed to the point, but it's not fair for us to cast our pearls before swine. And for those who don't understand that, it's a really tricky verse because most of the people are like, or segment.
What I'm saying is choose your argument.
Let me finish. Let me finish
about.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, because
don't judge them and don't be like, "Yo, you should be this way," or that's not going to lead you down.
So what you need to understand is when you're talking about a concept, that turns into a philosophy, that turns into it's an idea, and those ideas proliferate, they grow, they're a living thing. They mean something different to the unbelievers, and they mean something different to the believers, right? Like forgiveness means something different for us. Grace means something different for us because we have a sacred nomenclature that actually says what these things are. It's not dependent upon how we feel. These have very defined definitions. We're not going to go sit there into like a fresh and fit guy or something like that and be like, yo, you're wrong about this for this reason, or judge them. I'll be like, yes, you're wrong. Here's a better way. This is what you're looking for. You may not know it. But I'm not going to say you have red pill wrong because for you, it might be right. You're in a fallen state. You have no idea. Your moral compass is whatever you want it to be.
But there's things they can agree on. Like I said, like the families and what makes a high quality. Like if you're going to go for
that's why they always start talking about stats. I don't care
if it's Myron or, some secular guy or whatever. If he's going to find a decent chick, chances are she's not going to have daddy issues. There's a mom and dad together. And chances are those mom and dad had some respect and some kind of like, some core beliefs that they believed in together. Now you can get into whatever religion you want to because there's great Muslim families, there's great Christian families, there's great Jewish families, and they've all produced good kids. But there's some common ground that is there that needs to be respected. And so choose your battles with those people. The red pill community, don't go at them from that religious high moral ground. It's going to get you nothing. But, ears
this
shut.
is the thing I wanted. This is my message. This is our message as the Iron Disciples. We're non-denominational. We love the Protestants. Take them all. They're great. We love the Catholics, the Orthodox, Eastern guys. We love them all. And I think that they all can be redeemed. The problem in church and Christians, what happens is the same thing you see with like Christian musical artists. They won't play with secular artists. I'm not going to be on the stage with this guy because then it seems like I'm endorsing so-and-so stuff and they're secular or they're outright evil and I can't do that. It's like, dude, you need to jump into the fight, bro. You can't be sitting in the back, safe place in your garrisons in the echo chamber. You need to get out there and start educating and be a part of the education because discipling is educating, period. It's what it's doing. You're helping somebody get from point B or point A to point B. That's what you're doing. So you can't sit on the sidelines and just be, yippee, we're winners, and everybody out there is this. And that condescension just does nothing for anybody.
And I think you're also like, let's say if you go on like a podcast like this as a Christian dude, you're not trying to change the podcast host's mind. You got an audience that's listening, and that's who you're representing yourself to and Jesus to is the audience, and that's what really matters. Because I think the audiences in a lot of these red pill spaces are I'd say they're very open to.
They are,
and
a lot of them do identify
traditional
with the host. Especially if they're regulars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I think it makes no sense to go just attack the host.
Never.
Because these people are following them for a reason, and that's just going to put them on the defense with the host, and you're not accomplishing anything.
But we need to differentiate the fact that, like, and this is because we have our nuts, period. I have my nuts, and I'm going to go talk to a host, and I can critique him and be honest with him.
Challenge him.
Talk directly. This is the way it is. And this is because I love that person. And this is what you really need to get centered on yourself. We need to be centered on as Christians because so many times when they get into those quote-unquote conflicts, they forget that they're coming from a place of love. That this education, you're interfacing with a human being that's being influenced by Satan. They're in a fallen state, dude. This is battle. This is spiritual warfare you're engaged with. Come from a place of love. Don't cut their knees off and then just, kind of walk away. You need to lift them back up again.
But don't come from a place of psycho. They're going to interpret as psycho, too. Like, you have to...
Everybody's going to think you're a psycho.
No, there's a difference there between taking somebody in, understanding them before you come at them. And I mean as a person, because you might look up as many videos as you want, but until you see them face-to-face and take them in physically, it's a different story.
Completely agree. I mean, like, even with somebody who's... a serial killer on death row, if you were to try and minister to them, you're not like, oh, you're just a lost cause. You can't do that. You have to take the people in.
Christians do, but this is kind of like a divergent from where we were going.
All I'm trying to say, because this is important for us, is what our goal should be is taking what Rollo Tomassi and some of these people who have had a God-given perspective on truth, and take that truth that they've seen and apply it to the church so we can make better families, right? Like, we're looking for progress here. We're not looking for entertainment because our listeners want to progress. These men are not looking at 3 guys because we're entertaining.
We might together for y'all.
Yeah, all right, man. You know, like, and I'm sure that beyond anybody, when they think about time well spent, it's going to be like, man, that changed my life. That's their best time well spent. Like, that felt like I came away with some gold.
The ultimate destination is death, y'all. You're going to receive that one day or another.
It doesn't matter when, dude.
That's right.
Post-trib, pre-trib, no trib. You know, like, you got your death day. And so, like, you gotta be serious. If you're a young guy, it's not happening overnight. It's not happening overnight. Be cool with that. You gotta have to marinate, simmer, be this slow-cooked man. Okay, it's gonna happen. And be critical of the stuff you're ingesting, because, like, for our listeners, if you're listening to this stuff and you're devoting hours of time, you know, and you're like, okay, have I heard this 600 times? Yeah, I've heard this 600 times. Am I applying this? No, I'm not applying this. What am I actually getting out of this content? Is it really just entertainment for me? Because, like, the schism is important. There are men out there who are saying what they want and desire to hear. They have an appetite for good stuff. And part of becoming a man is noticing your corrupt garbage appetites and starving the demons out of you.
That was one of Rollo's points. He said, get rid of all sedations and anything that interrupts your focus. And I totally agree with that. You know, you got to get real with that. You know, get obsessed and on your grind, so to speak, on good things. You know,
yeah, it takes little tiny things that it's like. That's why I appreciate Jordan Peterson with this basic stuff. Clean your room, dude. If you can't clean your room, clean your car. Clean your car and your room. Make your life slowly, little iterative steps, a better thing. So then that's going to create a human being that can make decisions about the right woman to buy dinner for. You know, those are seriously complicated decisions. Like, you think they're simple. They are not.
Right.
Should I text this girl back? Is she a high value? Like, those are hard decisions you're starting to make there.
Yep.
And there's no quantum physics scientists that can quantate that with some rational. You're entering into the domains of spirits. It's commingling, bro. Mm-hmm. So serious, deep stuff, man. And the red pill does have potential. I believe it's helped me, dude, so much. And we just want to see it get back on track in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah, it's too toxic right now.
Yeah.
Toxic pill.
But all right, well, till next time, everyone.